You know, finding poems like that in a stack of poetry is one of the reasons that I do what I do. Another reason is being able to publish a writer who's had influence on my own writing. And I have to say, one of my favorite books is North to Yesterday, Robert Flynn's first novel. It's by far the best cowboy novel I ever read. And one of the funniest. Robert is a much honored Texas writer. He is past president of the Texas Institute of Letters, a recipient of the Spur Award and the Western Heritage Foundation Award. He is professor emeritus from Trinity University, and he taught some of our best writers. Naomi and I was a student of his. And this is a book that I asked him to give me. It's called Burying the Farm, and actually it came as a submission to an anthology I was editing, and I said, this is too good to be an anthology, I want to do it as a separate book. So we did this. It's a memoir of his growing up in Chillicothe, and of his family, and of literally burying the farm. This book is a limited edition with handmade paper covers, and in the paper are leaves from the town he grew up in, or around the town he grew up in, Chillicothe, Texas. So please welcome Robert Flynn.
Thank you, Bryce. I'm glad we don't have one of those noisy, large audiences like they have outside. That's why I like hanging out with poets. They never draw a crowd. Tell you a little bit about the beginning of this book. I didn't bring a copy of this book because I was afraid someone would try to buy it and I would be arrested for it. A policeman stationed around to arrest anybody who buys the book tonight. Gene and I now own the family farm, which has been in the Flynn family for 122 years next St. Patrick's Day, next week. That's not so long in South Texas, but that's an eternity in Northwest Texas. We sold the house many years ago because it was vacant and people were sort of camping in it and building fires and so forth, and we were afraid it would burn down, so it was sold and moved off, but there were still 5 buildings on the farm. And if you've ever lived on a farm, you know, farms are like museums. I've been attacked. If you've never lived on a farm, they're like junk piles. There's rusting stuff, equipment everywhere. So we knew we had to do something with it, clean it up a little bit. So it's about 7 hours. If we don't stop, if we have lunch in the car, it's about a 7-hour trip. It's a 400 miles trip to the farm. We have to check it occasionally, but we would go up and burn a building and one time upsetting the Chillicothe Fire Department because they could see smoke and they didn't know what was out there to burn. There's not a whole lot around Chillicothe to burn. But we made several trips and we slowly burned those off, and that left us with all this metal. So I thought we'd sell it for scrap metal. Nobody was interested in scrap metal. There was absolutely no market for it. So I was trying to figure out what to do with it, and somebody said, why don't you bury it? And I thought, bury it? I didn't want to bury it. But we did. We contacted this guy who, Doc Blevins, maybe I've forgotten his last name now. Anyway, he brought out 2 bulldozers, and they dug 4 holes, and they poured everything into it and buried it, except the things we wanted to keep. There are a few of those, and it's becoming the family cemetery because we're spreading ashes out there, family members. If they die off fast enough, we'll spread a few more of them. I'm just going to read the first part of this, though, as an intro to the family. My father, James E. Flynn, was the first child born in Chillicothe, Texas. He was not born in a boxcar. My mother corrected me on that many times. I used to tell that as a story. My father was born in a boxcar. He was born in a Pullman outfitted as a boxcar. No, not really. He was born in a Pullman that was fitted out because he was the construction He was in charge of construction of the Fort Worth and Denver Railroad as it passed through Chillicothe. That was the end of the track when my father was born. Dad was born in 1887, 12 years after Quanah Parker moved to the reservation across the river in what is now Oklahoma. And that's right across the river from us. And Quanah Parker was a presence in the area at that time, in Chillicothe, Vernon, and Quanah. That was 6 years after the OK Corral. My grandfather bought a section of land 4 miles west of Chillicothe, east of Chillicothe, and built a house near the track so he could catch the train to work every day. He was murdered a few years later and left a widow and 3 sons, and they hung on to that land through a couple of world wars. Times when cotton was 6 cents a pound, times when cotton, they called it shoe top cotton because it was so low, it was so dry, and it was so low they picked it off their shoe tops. So we're hanging on to it, and if anybody wants to see it, you'll have to come dig it up. Thank you.